Welcome back to the Tula Community Podcast. I am recording this on a rainy Tuesday evening, and I am enjoying, and I really hope that this microphone picks it up, but I don't think that it will, so you'll just have to trust me on this one. But I'm enjoying the sound of the raindrops on my skylights, which is always such a nice ambient sound, and always something that I've really appreciated being in this current house that I live in, is these skylights and just the raindrops and being all cozy in my home with my candles lit and in my bed and getting to enjoy just the sounds of nature, So I hope it picks it up, but if it doesn't, just please put your faith in me that it's fantastic. This episode was a wonderful opportunity and practice of a few things for us here, and so in this episode I have the opportunity to chat with Andrea Morris, the founder of halfmoon, which, after a few years of correspondence with one another, just emails and chatting, maybe a couple Instagram messages here and there, nothing of course face to face and nothing in real time really, this is our first time getting to sit down and chat. And so that in and of itself was just like a wonderful thing to be able to do. I felt grateful to, have a little snippet of her time and to ask her some questions that I've always wanted to ask her, or that I've just been curious about as someone who owns this business that we all know very well and love. I don't think there's a single person I shared, with that I was telling them, I recorded this podcast with Andrea, she owns halfmoon, halfmoon. And they were like, wow, really? And I was like, yeah, they're like, I love their props. I was like, I know. So, we deeply appreciate all of the creations that have come from halfmoon. So that was a really lovely thing. And the second thing that I got to learn and again have the opportunity to experience was getting to do this Zoom podcast, this digital recorded podcast episode. And this was our very first one doing that. And I think probably I had a little bit of resistance to do that. I don't even know if it was fully resistance, but I think it's probably going to boil down to that when you hear what I'm going to say. But I have always just, of course, really appreciated being able to sit down with someone face to face in the same room to, exchange conversation, to exchange energy, to go and take the photos after the podcast episode is done being recorded, and to connect that way. But of course, you start to get a little bit limited in who you can chat with, and there's all of these incredible people to talk to and to learn from around the world. And so I knew that there was going to have to be a point where I got over my resistance and my I guess my rigidity around not wanting to chat online. And since then we've done another episode as well that's coming out soon. So we're on the way to getting over some of our objections in life, So I'm grateful that Andrea allowed me to hold that space. And I can give you a bit of a backstory of how I got connected. And this takes us kind of way back, how I got connected to Andrea. But, many of you will know, before I started taking photos, before I even had a podcast, way back, I don't even know what year would that have been? Oh, probably 2022, roughly. I'm pretty sure, actually. Yeah, 2022. I was teaching yoga, and I was teaching in person a little bit, and I was teaching online, and I had these Zoom classes, and I taught in person when I was renting a studio, and I taught there, yoga in the park, as we all did. And I applied to be, I think at the time it was a little different. I think it was, you were an ambassador of it was halfmoon at the time. It was just halfmoon. The companies had not merged yet. And I really didn't think that anything would come of it, because, when you have these blocks in your mind where people will only accept you into these programs, which it's a real thing. Like, it's a block in your mind that can either be a reality or just something that you've created that kind of holds you back, or a true thing where, you need to have the numbers to be able to partner with these companies, or they want to see that you have the following, and that's the only way that they'll take you on. Now, fortunately for me, and thankfully for Andrea, neither of us believe in that, and I've never believed in that. But of course, it's a reality where you just I have been denied from some things because I just don't have this massive following. So at the time, my Instagram was relatively new, and it gained a bit of traction, but nothing really crazy or anything like that, but still full of real people. And I applied to be an ambassador, and they accepted me, and that, I will say, and I've talked about this a few times, that when people believe in you, it of course goes a long way, and that can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't need to be these companies accepting you, so to speak, or anything like that, but just people that that tell you that they believe in you and that you can do this and that you are capable and that you are intelligent, of course goes a really long way. But from a place of getting accepted into this ambassador role for this company that you genuinely do admire and appreciate, and you are immersed in it because you're utilizing what they've created for so long and so many years. It really meant a lot to me. Of course, I was like, oh my God, I got accepted. It's amazing. It's so nice. And so eventually that turned into, it shifted into being more of an affiliate partnership. And so, yeah, since then, I mean, Half Moon at the time and now Be Half Moon, had gifted me with some wonderful props that some of you listening might have actually utilized or enjoyed or got to practice with, and I was so grateful for that too. They were so kind to give me those and gift me those, and yeah, I feel really happy that I have this connection to this wonderful team and to these people. So. That's my backstory of how I got connected, and of course, any of my interactions with Andrea have been so kind and lovely and caring and thoughtful and supportive. So it's all I could do back is just support her and support the company, and I think it's in this great place of reciprocity between us. So that's how I got connected with Be Half Moon and how I got to chat with Andrea. So that's that. I'll share a little bit about Andrea here. Andrea Morris is the founder of Be Half Moon, a Canadian wellness brand rooted in slow, intentional, and meaningful connection. Her mission is to inspire people to live truthfully and nurture their well-being on and off the mat. Andrea's journey began in Sydney, Australia, where her love of yoga took shape during her master's in international business. Years later, while working in her family's manufacturing company, she transformed an innovative rubber material into what became the Bee Mat, launching Bee Yoga in 2014. Following the 2018 joining of Half Moon, a brand steeped in yoga and meditation tradition, the two came together in 2023 as Be Half Moon, a single brand grounded in mindfulness, community, and purpose. Now a certified B Corporation, Be Half Moon continues to grow with intention, creating tools and spaces that honor the beauty of slowing down. Andrea lives in Toronto with her husband, Fraser, and their daughters, Madison and Everly. So below, I will link Be Half Moon's Instagram and website. Of course, I will link Andrea's Instagram for you to check out all things in her world, of course. And I think that it is only right here in this place where I share about our sponsor that I share about Be Half Moon, our sponsor. What do you think? I feel like it's got to go hand in hand. So I just feel like I've shared about this many times. Like I've said, it's the first company that I felt like believed in me, so early on, and all of them since have felt so special and like such an honor. But it's so amazing to be recording this right now and speaking to my code with Be Half Moon, this company that really gave me a lot of self appreciation, and just like, okay, maybe I do got this, So if you are wanting anything yoga, Pilates, wellness related, if you need props, if you need anything to support your practices and your daily well-being of grounding and slowing down, my code is Whitney15. I will link it below, and I hope that you enjoy this episode, and thank you so much for being here. Okay. All right. So great to sit down here with you, Andrea. And if you'd like to take the time to introduce yourself and share anything that you'd like to share.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, Whitney. It's such a pleasure. I'm Andrea Morris McKay. I still haven't fully landed as Andrea McKay, which is my husband's last name, so I go with both. And I am the very grateful founder of Be Yoga, and then was fortunate to acquire Half Moon in 2018, which together are now the two sister brands are now one under the name Be Half Moon. I'm also a mom, wife, grateful member of community, and so happy to chat with you.
Oh, so great to have you. I would love to hear the story of your journey through business, through entrepreneurship, and kind of how it all came to be with B, And so if you could tell me like some of your life's journey through the world of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I'm finally at a stage where I recognize that like I have quite a few chapters in my journey, and I'm operating today from a place of wisdom. Whereas, you know, 12 years ago when I founded Be Yoga, I was operating from a place of passion. And I still have that passion, but of course I didn't have the experience and the wisdom that I have now. So it's interesting where I have kind of a different perspective and I'm looking at things from a different vantage point now, which is very, very kind of new for me, stepping into this new wisdom element of my journey. But I can say that the entrepreneurial bug was seeded in me at a very early age. Both my parents did bachelors of commerce, so business has always been kind of subconsciously ingrained in me. I did a BCom, and then I did my master's in Australia. And when I was in Australia 22 years ago or 23 years ago, I found yoga, or I say yoga found me
Yeah,
while I was doing a master's in business.
right.
So that's when the seed of what we're talking about today was really first planted, which was in 2003.
Yeah.
And I found this great passion for yoga. It supported me through so much then and still does to this day. I was a shy 20-something-year-old, only Canadian in the program there, and really unsure of myself. And yoga really held me through that while I was doing my master's degree. And so the integration of those two passions started then. And there's a very long story from that point forward. So I don't know, like, do you want me to start with the launch of Be Yoga, like
Yeah,
anything
well,
in particular?
I'd be very curious to know, what was there a thing where you were practicing and using a specific type of mat and you were thinking this could just be better? Like, was that kind of your thought
Yeah.
process? Like, what was it?
Yeah, so interesting. So I wanted to start my own business before I knew what it was.
Hmm.
So I wanted to be an entrepreneur, to really, as I see it, like control my creative and entrepreneurial and career destiny for a very long time. So I had that desire before I even um, came up with the idea of Be Yoga and BMAT. And I remember I had like a journal next to my bed for years when I was in my late teens, early 20s, where I would jot down business ideas. And they were embarrassing. Like none of them made sense.
Yeah.
But to reinforce the fact that like I wanted to do this before I had the idea.
Hmm.
And I worked in marketing for many years, and then I eventually joined my dad's family business and became fifth generation of that business. And it's deeply rooted in integrity, good people, old boys club business.
Yeah.
But I felt this calling, even though I was a young 20-something-year-old female and had many hurdles, felt this calling. And at the same time, I was still a very avid yogi and really passionate about yoga. I practiced on the Lululemon mat. That was kind of like the premium mat in Canada at the time.
Yeah.
But I do remember going to practice anytime I had a new mat and the smell of the toxins or chemicals being so overwhelmingly strong and being embarrassed in my yoga class, being like,
Yeah.
this is my mat. It doesn't fit with the energy and the
Yes, yeah,
vibe
yeah.
of the day.
Yeah, because it's very potent, and like that it's chemical. Like your body just knows that it's smelling something that's not ideal. Like,
That's it. And I
yeah.
remember wanting to like issue an apology to the class, being like, I'm sorry, it's a new mat.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew there was always like room for a more eco-friendly mat. And I always struggled with slipping for sure. But
Yeah.
I never like, obviously, I'm always being honest. I never was like, I'm gonna be the I'm not I'm that's going to be my business until I joined my dad's company. I was eventually put in charge of his rubber manufacturing division.
No way. Wow.
You know this story at all?
No, I don't know this story, and I'm happy to hear it.
It's it's kind of crazy. This would have been like 14 years ago. I was put in charge of running the foam manufacturing business, and this was an operations manufacturing business, business to business, so just selling to other companies that would convert foam into something else. Not my wheelhouse at all. But again, felt the calling and was put in this role and put my head down and did the work. And one day I was in the R&D lab with this gentleman named Sathi. He was in his 70s. My dad signed his immigration papers in 1990, like lovely man. And I stumbled upon this grippy compound. And I said half jokingly to Sathi, "Hey, Sathi, this would make a great yoga mat." And he was like, "Oh, Andrea, sure." But the moment I said it, I couldn't forget it. He
Yeah.
he was like, "No, no, moving on." But I could not get it out of my head. I went home and I was at that age and stage in my life where we were going to a lot of weddings and engagement parties. And I remember leaving these celebrations, which I loved early, to start writing a business plan. So once it was that rubber compound, that was the real push
Yeah.
to basically building a business plan to create B Yoga.
Right.
It's
And here you
crazy.
are. And here you are. Wow.
You
Yeah.
just
And I didn't know, I wouldn't have known any of that, of course, right? I read a little bit about you and I kind of discovered a few things this week, of course, but to hear it from you, just as someone who's been in the practice space for, now I think I've been practicing about 16 years. And so these things have always kind of been around. Like I've witnessed and used these props for a long time, of course, right? So
yeah,
it's good to hear it from your mouth, of course, right? Yeah.
it's
Um,
pretty, yeah.
and do you feel like, once you kind of got that going, like how long was that process for you?
It was about, I move pretty quickly when I want to, sometimes to a fault, I've learned in my wisdom years, but it was pretty quick. So I had the idea, and within a year, I had built the business plan, done the research, gone to some trade shows,
Mm,
gotten approval from the board that I was reporting to get a $30,000 investment to basically build some inventory, build a website, build the brand. And it was basically 12 months to launch. And we launched early April. I think it was like April 7th, 2014
mm,
at the Toronto Yoga Conference. And that was kind of my litmus test where we were there for 5 days. I just set out basically a platform with a B mat on it and just said to people like, "Hey, try this, you'll understand."
yeah.
And people got into their down dog on this platform, and the resounding feedback was like, "Wow, oh my gosh, this will change my practice. Wow." And it was very humbling and very encouraging. So after that trade show, the launch, I knew pretty deeply within myself that we had something here.
Yeah.
Despite the fact like no one knew the brand. I was put in the corner of the trade show with like a fire hydrant in the middle of the booth. Like we were no one. We were just
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
corner. And I was like, just get on the mat.
Get on the mat.
And that coupled with, I think people just felt the integrity of the brand. And so things escalated, like I shouldn't say escalate, things grew pretty organically and pretty quickly from
Hmm.
that point.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And, I have a B mat and it's the grippiest one I've ever used by far. I used to use a Lululemon mat. I didn't use the newer one that they have now. I had the one prior, which might have been the one that you had, where it was a little bit,
Probably.
the surface was textured and there was a
Okay.
line on it for your alignment. Like you could actually follow your alignment on it. And then eventually, yeah, I got a B mat and I love it so much. I love it so much.
Other
And
VMAT you have.
I feel like I feel on it. I don't feel like I'm gonna get lost or that's gonna take me places I don't want to go. Like I know that I can trust it, I think.
Love that. It's also very natural, right? Like the production process is natural. There's nothing unsafe in it. It's safe for people, infants, pets. And
Yeah.
I think like you almost feel closer to the earth, closer to the ground
Yep.
on the mat relative to some where they'll sit in a landfill for 25 years, like
Yeah.
that our bodies, as you alluded earlier,
Hmm.
perceive that.
Right, right. And so does it break down naturally as well when when its time is up kind of thing?
It will break down in a landfill like in a relatively decent amount of time, right?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
ultimately is biodegradable,
Hmm.
yet it still has enough longevity to serve, you and the community for a long period of time.
Right.
So
Right. Okay. And so, once you got that going, then, you're in this place of doing your own thing and into business. And then, how long were you working in just, kind of that space of bee, I guess, right? Like just with the bee mat and those other products that you had.
yeah, it was about 4 years of just be on its own,
Hmm.
3.5. And in hindsight, I can say it was a truly magical time because there was so much passion. It was fueled by passion and adrenaline. And I remember my first leap of faith was my first hire, who was Erin Takuchi, who I still am in touch with to this day. You may have conversed with her before. Like, I love her so much. And she applied to work for me from a deep place of passion. And I remember, it was such a big deal to hire her. And we worked side by each for 5 strong years together. And it was just this beautiful chemistry and snowball of growth for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And we added blocks and then we added straps. And we were then trying to figure out, like, how can we really round out our offering, pun intended,
Yeah.
to offer bolsters, meditation cushions, eye pillows, blankets. And we kept butting up against dead ends. We were just like, we couldn't quite figure it out. And as soon as I went to kind of abandon that initiative, that project, literally that week, I got a knock on the door, an email from Beth McTavish, who is the founder of Half Moon.
Wow.
That was April 2017. So that was 3 years after we launched. And to me, I've said this so many times, to me, it was like getting an email from Jennifer Aniston, like the founder of Half Moon.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I know I just read your post about like not our obsession with celebrities.
Yeah.
So maybe
No, that's fine.
that,
It's
but
okay.
you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's an amazing person and actress, but
Yes, she is.
hearing from Beth McTavish, being a yogi for so many years already, my mom had a yoga studio which was outfitted in Half Moon
Oh,
props,
wow.
which I bought my mom for Christmas well before I had founded Be Yoga.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it was like such a pinch me moment.
Yeah.
And she was taking a huge leap of faith and she reached out and said, Andrea, I love what you're doing with Be Yoga. I can see that our ethos align,
Yeah.
respective ethos align between the two brands. I'm nearing retirement, looking to sell my business. I have a few suitors, but you feel like a better fit. Are you interested? And the rest is history. It took us, I didn't acquire Half Moon until February of that, like, I guess 10 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Courted each other for 10
And
months.
did you feel that your answer was, like how you said earlier that you move kind of quickly? Did you feel that your answer was yes right away, or did you know that like you wanted to think about it a little bit and pull back from moving so quickly? Or was it like a full body right away, like, of course, yes. Like, what do you mean? Yeah.
No, I, in the spirit of being honest, which I always am, I think my ego got pretty into that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
I
I mean,
think my
it would happen.
ego, yeah, and like I can again in hindsight really be acknowledge that and be honest with myself about that.
Yep. Yep.
Um, you know, Jennifer Aniston, I think
Yeah.
like that really, I almost like that's at that point I started to in a bit lose connection to my core and like why I was doing this in the first place.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because we had such a crazy momentum and I don't know, my ego just got in the way. So
Of course.
it wasn't actually a clear yes or no because it was a very complex move to take on.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I
I
think
think
my
like,
ego's perspective, there was no no.
right.
Ego's
Yeah.
perspective, it had to be
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think, this is some aspect that gets a little bit, complicated, I think, in the business space, but when the business space is led from also a spiritual point of view, you know, and of course you do get involved in your ego a little bit, and sometimes you do lose track of the root of why you're doing something, and you have to come back to that. You know, ethos for yourself. You're like, oh, well, wait a minute, like, why am I doing this? And of course, yes, if a half moon knocked on my door, I would feel the same. And I've been in a few positions myself where just I've gotten offers from things that, you know, you deem as great or everybody knows the name or whatever it is, and you're like, well, I want to do it. Like, yeah, yeah, sure, I can be involved in that. And it's hard to drop that sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. So it's a bit like I remember being rooted in gratitude and feeling humbled, and so it wasn't entirely ego driven, but
Yeah.
there was certainly an element of that, plus pressures, as you alluded to, from a business perspective. From a business perspective, it absolutely made sense
Hmm.
from a growing the business POV. And in that time, in 2018 to 2020, the not to get too businessy, but like the
Hmm.
consumer packaged goods e-commerce world was exploding.
Hmm.
All the brands at that time were chasing growth at
Yeah.
all costs, top
Yeah.
line, like sales growth. So there was also this other world that we were part of that was on this crazy rocket ship of growth.
Hmm.
Maybe wasn't kind of the best approach. And that's at a more macro perspective.
Right.
So, we're in all these concentric circles and I had different spheres of influence impacting that decision. And
Hmm.
there was a lot of gratitude and a lot of humility, but there was also a lot of ego and kind of business pressure at the same
Yeah.
time.
Right. Right. And so in your, you know, you acquired this company and you know, that was in 2018, you said, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, of course, in this place that you're in now, you know, you've changed, you've grown, you've developed new ways of being, I'm sure, you know. And what do you
Yeah.
feel like has changed for you in your approach or just in business in general from, you know, 2018 to now, nearly 10 years ago?
Yeah. It's wild.
It
Um,
is. 2018 doesn't feel like 10 years ago, like, but almost
no,
there.
that can't be true.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What do you mean?
Time is work. Um, I will have to say, like when Half Moon and Be Yoga became sister brands, we did put a lot of intention into keeping the brands separate and really treating Half Moon as the wise older sister and Be Yoga as the younger, urban younger sister.
Mhm.
And that resonates to this day. And we did a lot of brand planning, and I also brought in a culture consultant because who was very rooted in spirituality, which I love. She actually supported Lululemon through a lot of their growth in
Mhm.
the early days.
Mhm.
I brought her on because I wanted to ensure that as we integrated the two companies and brands and cultures, and as we continued to grow, that we could really stay tethered to our why and stay tethered to our values, which we shared.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ensure that the teams came together as one and understood that shared why that union made sense at its core,
Mhm.
and that that was always front and center. And
Yeah.
I also had to build a lot of trust between these two teams. We had one, the B Yoga team, which was smaller and younger on the East Coast. We had the Half Moon team, which was larger and generally speaking, like had an older demographic on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And as you probably know, even like East and West Coast, there are cultural differences and preconceived notions around people from Toronto versus people from Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I bit off a lot.
Mhm.
And I worked really hard to bring those teams together and to create trust and to make them one, and then to really make the brands resonate strongly as sisters, which they did. Um, but in those first kind of 5 years of bringing the two together, there was a lot on my shoulders and it was a lot of pressure. And despite what I just shared with you, which I'm very proud of that approach,
Mhm.
I put a ton of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Was traveling too much, was trying to achieve too much any given day, and didn't have enough focus on my family and didn't have enough focus on supporting my own nervous system.
Mhm.
So I I'm kind of jumping ahead, but in 2020, my body raised its hand and said, "You're not listening to me."
Hmm.
I had a big kind of nervous system shakeup, was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease that essentially forced me to slow the F down.
Yeah.
And I can say it's been 5 years since that occurrence. I'm finally at a place in my life where I'm retethered to my original why. I've slowed down. I've created space in my life. I have way more time for my family. And I've learned from the chaos that I created. You know what I mean? I've
Yeah.
learned and I'm calm again.
Yeah.
But that's a big kind of 10 years of learning and
Yeah.
growing,
Right.
and sometimes learning the hard way.
Yeah, and well, in any of our journeys in life, I think you have to do it to know. You have to put yourself in those positions to get to the place where your nervous system is kind of screaming at you, and to know to now I need to switch. You have to learn the lesson and experience those things, and then be okay. I have to make a pivot for myself because this isn't working, and it's speaking so loudly to me.
Yeah. And I absolutely. And there were times when I would tell my team, like, guys, I feel like a hypocrite because I'm not I'm not benefiting from what we're preaching. I'm not benefiting from what we're selling. So I
Mhm.
felt like, how can I be leading this company when I'm suffering? And their feedback was always so kind in that, like, yes, but you're being vulnerable and you're being honest about your challenges because we all trip at times or we all lose our way at times. And part of it is just acknowledging and creating the awareness and then building a path towards coming back to ourselves.
Right.
So it's such an interesting evolution.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, I think that, both brands separately and now coming together as one, your transparency, your honesty has always felt front and center and true, like I think that most of us that are, witnessing from the outside can see that you are being honest and you're sharing the truth and you're leading from that place. And even from a company standpoint, that your why seems to be at the forefront as well. Like, there's just I think the brand leads with a lot of integrity, and we can all kind of tell that. And it is really deeply appreciated in today's business climate, if you if you will. Like it's just nice to know why and the reasons, and to lead from this really truthful place.
Yeah, it means so much to hear that. So thank you, because that's really ultimately our goal is to lead with integrity and to share everything we do with deep integrity.
Right.
And I feel like there have been times over the course of the company's life where we lost that a little bit. We became really big,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and we just had blinders on to certain things. At its core, we were always true to our values
Yep.
and good.
Yep.
But it were just times where it wasn't 100% as laser focused and simple.
Yep.
But we're really tethered back to that now. And that is ultimately what I'm most proud of and inspired by.
Right. Right. And so, in that time, I believe you have two daughters, is that correct?
I
Yeah.
do.
And
Yeah.
so they were born in what years?
So my eldest Madison was born 6 months after I launched B Yoga. So in
Oh, wow.
2014.
Wow. Okay.
When I launched B Yoga at the trade show I mentioned, I was 6 months pregnant with her. So she was there.
Okay.
And then Everly was born shortly thereafter in 2016.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they've been part of this journey through and through, and it's quite fascinating.
Right. And do they love and appreciate being there for kind of all of it and witnessing things? Do you see them get involved with the team or even in their yogic practices as kids?
Yeah, they've gone through chapters of involvement, like doing online yoga. They've been doing that forever and ever, like during COVID. They used to go to all the trade shows and come visit me, which was always really fun because the team would greet them and play with them and get to know them. And now as they're a bit older, they're excited about the products and the brand a little bit more.
Yeah.
And if they see something on like social media, which they're not on social media, but if they see something on my screen,
Yeah. Yeah.
that excites them. So they've had different iterations of involvement and excitement, but I think ultimately they're proud and they're learning that they can pursue their passion,
Hmm.
right? As they grow into themselves. And I'm really excited about that and that they get to see that through me. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I launched the business, it was full on with my family as well. And I'd say for the first 5 years of motherhood, I almost used the business as like a bit of an
Hmm.
escapism or
Hmm.
distraction. Yeah. Whereas now I spend a lot more time with my family and less time traveling and on the
Right.
road.
Right.
I'm a
And
lot more.
do you feel like you were placing yourself, stronger focused on the business because you were just in a place of overwhelm, and that seemed to be the thing that you could kind of do to keep your mind busy on this one thing, and it has this specific goal behind it, and you have a team relying on you, or like what do you feel was the reason that you were feeling like, okay, well, I need this I don't know, this place of like escapism.
Yeah, great question. Um, in 2014, 6 weeks after my daughter was born, she was diagnosed with a genetic condition called Williams syndrome,
Hmm.
which means she's missing a part of her seventh chromosome. And um, we caught wind of a challenge with her when I was pregnant with her. She stopped growing in my womb
Hmm.
um, at about 8 months. And so that was really, really scary. I remember the doctor saying she's not growing and she's safer outside of the womb than inside the womb. Yet I couldn't get her out of the womb. So that was pretty jarring and traumatic. And as I just said, she was diagnosed with Williams syndrome when she was 6 weeks old. And that's a pretty heavy reality to take on, one that we're not necessarily expecting as well. And I think it took my husband and I a really long time to process that. And probably for the first 4 years of Madison's life, I'd never hid it. I'd shared this with everyone who I know and love. But when I couldn't really talk about it, I would cry. And I didn't research Williams syndrome for a long time. I just kind of took things day by day and obviously listened to all of her medical support, obviously, but I didn't really go down like Dr. Google path because I didn't want to know. I wanted to just be in the present.
Yeah.
But that's really, concurrent to that diagnosis, I had this business that was growing in a very organic, magical way, and that brought me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And so Madison has brought me joy from day one. Please do never get that wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the realities of her trajectory of her life are very different than most children.
Mhm.
That was a lot to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think I used the business as a positive escape for myself because it was bringing me so much magic and I just needed to kind of shut off this element and have this other kind of distraction. But I feel like I'm judging myself. I was always there for Madison to support her, but it
Yeah.
was just a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I don't know if this is how you feel, but um, I'm in a similar place to you. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, even when I was a kid. It's been what I've been surrounded by as well. And so, once you actually hit a place of doing it finally, and it's happening and whatever, like it's very exciting and motivating, and it's also your child in another way, and you just want to give everything to it. I just like once things kind of got going for me and the ball was really rolling, I felt just really excited and ready to do it, and I want to wake up every day and go to do that. So I don't know if that's how you felt as well, or if there was like a similar aspect where it's just like, oh, finally this thing that I just have dreamt about for years is it's tangible, it's here. So of course I want to show up for it.
100%. Yeah, it was magic. It wasn't work. It was being part
Yes.
of magic.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's not work. It's not work at
It's
all.
not work. And
Right.
I'm so grateful for that. And it took me, I always said it took me a while to grow into motherhood. Some people, even before they're pregnant, they feel the love of their child.
Mm.
And it just took me a bit longer than many to really grow into being a mom. And it's not that I didn't love my child, it was just kind of putting that hat on and taking on that role and feeling comfortable in it took me a bit longer. And now, like, I hugely associate with being a mom, but it's been 12 years.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, I guess the diagnosis of Madison made it a little bit harder to lean in and to wrap my head around the
Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
of that.
Right. And, if I can say, I think, there's definitely a space to give yourself some grace around that because it's a lot of moving parts, and that is, I think, the story for a lot of parents and especially mothers. There's this guilt that mothers carry just, with maybe not feeling really connected right away or fully immersed in being a mother just instantly. And they hear that others have done that and maybe you're not feeling it. And I've spoken to a few friends about their experience in that way. And so, um, if you've got a business going and two kids and a family and a husband and things like that, there is the space for you to give yourself some grace and love around that because it's a lot of moving parts.
Thank you. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And my kids ultimately, they are my greatest teachers. And I think you can call the business my third child. And all
Right.
three of them are great, great teachers.
Absolutely. Without a doubt, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And my greatest gifts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would want to know actually, from your experience, because I shared before with you that for me now at this point, I've been in the practice space for about 16 years. I've been teaching now for 6 years. And, you have been immersed in the practice space for, considerably longer and I would say, much more deeper immersed. And I'd be curious to know like what you think like about the practice space and how it's changed, obviously, in the last 20 something years. Um,
Yeah.
and like where do you see it kind of going? And what are the shifts that have existed, even if you thought that they would happen or not?
Yeah. I think, since I launched the business, actually, I'll go back further. When I started practicing in 2003, I was in Australia and
Mhm.
yoga was everywhere there. And it really wasn't in Canada at that point, especially on the East Coast. Maybe it was a little bit more available and accessible on the West Coast then. But I was blown away by the yoga culture in Australia back then, 23 years ago. And the first practice I did in Australia was Bikram, which I know has a bad rap now, but
Wow.
Bikram in a huge, like gymnasium size room,
Hmm.
carpeted floors,
Yep.
which was
Yeah. I know. Wild. And it's so sweaty.
and so sweaty, and then carpeted floors. And but all the surfers would come in post surf. So it would have been like 80% surfers and then 20% like female yogis like me. A lot of the surfers were men. And I was just blown away by the culture there and how many people practiced. And that's when I caught the bug, as you know. And then when I came back to Canada after that, yoga was just on the rise. Like it really obviously wasn't as widespread. There were the mokshas that became moto that were on the rise back then, and all very like serious, strict modalities like the moksha, which was like a hot flow. Um, but then when B Yoga launched, we rode a yoga wave where like studios opened day after day across the country, across the United States. Less so in Europe. Europe is not as developed in yoga.
Mhm.
But I remember when I did the business plan for B Yoga in 2013, Canada over-indexed for yoga practice.
Yeah.
So what that means is like relative to the rest of the world, we had the most yogis per capita, which I love.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure that's likely still the case to this
Yeah.
day. I haven't
Yeah.
researched it since, but I'm sure like yoga just kind of became more and more popular. I would say it peaked in 2019, 2020.
Hmm.
And at that point, and we saw this happening, and my practice was evolving in the same way. Hybrid practices really started coming out of the woodwork. So people were, you know better than I do, you're teaching, integrating Pilates with yoga, or there would be like yoga bar, there'd be hot hit yoga, all the things, you name it, that was coming out of the woodwork in
Mm.
2019, 2020.
Right.
And frankly, my practice evolved that way too. So everything the business has offered has been in parallel conjunction with what I've been practicing in my world. So when we launched bolsters and meditation cushions, that's when I was getting into meditation and when I was starting to practice yin. And then when we started in 2020, when we launched some resistance training tools, that's really when I started practicing like yoga lattes, and then I started getting into reformer. I do kind of ride these waves of change. I haven't always stuck with one type of yoga.
Yeah.
Post kids, I really started to slow down my practice. I was just
Mm.
called to practice in a slower way. So I really became drawn to hatha, and I still am to this day.
Yeah.
But as you know, that hybrid of practices really started in 2020 and is still prevalent to this day. But now we're seeing so many other fads like the reformer Pilates,
Yep.
like I don't know, all the other movement modalities that are coming into play. So I think from a fad perspective, yoga peaked in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I never like yoga is not going anywhere. I
Hmm.
think there's a core group of our community that understand the true virtues of a yoga practice
Yep.
and that will never let go of that. Will they practice in different ways? Yes, but I think at its core, it has a very, very strong place in the world.
Hmm.
I do think there are fads and trends that it will, come in and out of fad. And I think that fad peak was 2019, 2020. So I'm rambling, but that's kind of my general perspective.
Yeah.
Someone told me recently that yoga's coming back. I don't know if that's true.
Mm,
I don't,
yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I think, yeah, sometimes it does seem like it goes in waves. And I think, of course, because it's so anciently rooted and it's, more than just doing the shapes and what have you, that people do go in dips. I go in dips all the time. Even I said to my friend the
yeah,
other day, I said I went to a yoga class and it was not being led, in a way that I appreciated it anyway, I was like, I don't, this is not very good. Like, and I just find that I feel a little bit over the moves myself. Now I like to read about
right.
yoga and I like to go to kirtan and practice all these other ways of being and following the lineage in a different way. But for myself, like I don't really go and do the poses very often. I'm much more interested in Pilates right now. So so
There you go.
it's the way it is.
And to each their own, right? Some people
Yeah.
will have the same practice for 30 years
Yep.
and be dedicated to that. And others like myself, perhaps like yourself, I go in waves with what feeds me, what feeds my soul.
Hmm.
Every
Hmm.
week is different. And for me, I call that an occupational hazard where I kind of give myself permission to try different things every week. And
Yes.
I'm a change person, so I love that
Yes.
versus, having the same practice
Right, right. And you
every
mentioned
day.
when you were explaining the need for your own slowdown in your practices and to come into hatha or just practices that allowed you to relax a little bit. And do you feel like that's kind of the not only maybe the place that we're in, but much more necessary and would be important for people to come into more often than they're allowing themselves to be. Because I feel like I've just witnessed a slowdown and even a desperate need for much more slow than just going and moving and doing and pushing and pushing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the society is moving at such a fast pace,
Hmm.
as we know, and that has only sped up year over year. So I
Yeah.
think by virtue of that, you need that counterbalance of regrouping, slowing down, reconnecting, pausing. And I think to your point, like I think people, myself included, need that more than ever.
Hmm.
And I do think that society is really recognizing that more and more. certainly in our community, I see a lot of people are really gravitating towards the pause and the slowdown. And that's something we've been pushing in our messaging for a good 2 years now.
Yep.
It's something that we've lived by for a while now.
Yeah.
And it's really needed and really powerful. And I think it is resonating with more and more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And when did, because I remember the first time that pause was shared. And did that really come from the place that we're talking about now? We're just understanding that maybe we all just need to slow down every every once in a while. I feel like, Be Half Moon was the only company in any company space, not even just yoga, that was like, how about we just like take a breather for for a second, Like I had never really seen any company just be like, we need everybody needs a break.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So when we rebranded, when we integrated when we created Be Half Moon,
Yeah.
we intentionally put the comma after the B,
Hmm.
brand identity. And that comma is representative of the pause. That was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when we really decided that like we want to stand for this. We
Hmm.
want to stand up for the great slowdown, the pause, giving yourself grace, all those things.
Hmm.
Ultimately, our goal is to support people in coming back to themselves.
Yeah.
So we put that in our brand identity very deliberately 2.5 years ago.
Hmm.
What I think you're referencing more objectively is the business pause.
Well, I think a little bit of both, I guess, right? Like just witnessing the sharing of pause in general, and then yeah, maybe a bit of the business pause. But happy to hear about whatever you feel. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think a bit of both for sure.
that was truly a moment of like, blatant practicing, objective practicing what we preach.
Hmm.
But I will not, like, the truth is we had no choice.
Yeah.
Like there was no other way for the business.
Right.
So we paused, but we had to pause.
Yeah.
And that was a very scary thing to do, obviously, as you can imagine. A lot of unknowns were surrounding that. But my heart of hearts knew that this would be a pause whereby we would collect ourselves and come back stronger and basically retethered to our original why, our original roots. And
Hmm.
that is ultimately what we did.
Yeah.
But within that pause, there were things that I had to figure out that I didn't have answers to. But I
Hmm.
really just ultimately had to believe in the greater good and believe that what I see as what I envisioned happening would happen despite not knowing how.
Yeah.
And I've shared this a couple of times since we've come back from the pause. The community is a huge part of what brought us back
Hmm. Hmm.
because the community, people like yourself, were just so supportive
Yeah.
and really got behind the pause. Some people were inspired to take their own pauses to support their own well being. And they really reminded me that, like, it's okay, take your time, figure this out. We're here. We love you. We love that you're being in integrity through this, all the things. And those daily little messages, those daily encouragements
Hmm.
are really what supported me in essentially restarting the business, healing the business, and myself.
Yeah.
It was a remarkable chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. And I witnessed the community being so supportive, and I know what it's like when you just get really down or scared or lost or whatever it feels, and any of the fears that come up around these things. And so, um, the only thing we can do as humans is like look out for one another and uplift one another when when it's just like so dark around us. You need people to be like, it's okay, like you got this and we believe in you. Everybody needs to hear that. It's very important, no matter what you're doing, that you have people in
Yeah.
your corner that are like, you got this. You're intelligent and you're going to figure it out, and it all works out the way it's supposed to. And usually it works out, yeah, better in the long run.
Even if you can't see how.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
it's also just interesting because a lot of it's virtual, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's newer dynamic in this world. You know, a lot of our community, we connect virtually,
Yeah.
and there is more meaning and intention and power and truth in every like, in every comment.
Yeah.
And I learned that through the pause for sure.
Right. Right. And do you feel like you witnessed in yourself, because you're saying that intuitively you felt that you knew it was going to be okay, but I'm sure there was times where you probably peaked in your nervous system just being really heightened, of course. I'm sure that there was lots of moments of that. And, compared to when you first kind of started the business and you were going through those stresses and new to motherhood, did you witness a difference in how you were able to take those things on and handle them? And do you feel like you were a little bit more rooted and grounded in your emotional body?
Yes, 100%. And I just gave myself space to make decisions from a place of like connection.
Hmm.
I really tried to lead with trust versus fear.
Hmm.
I have a huge sense of urge. I had a huge sense of urgency and sometimes to a fault. Whereas through the pause, I just tried to actually do it the slow way,
Yeah.
which is obviously what we preach. So yeah, I did sort of approach things from a different place
Yeah.
and from a place of wisdom ultimately. You know, I've learned through experience and yet still having that passion for what we're doing at our core.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. And I learned that like through the early years and the mid years of the business, even though I tried to celebrate small wins with the team,
Mhm.
I never really was pausing enough to celebrate little things and
Yeah.
to sit in the gratitude of those little things because I was always thinking 5 steps ahead.
Hmm.
And today I'm just much more present and grounded and rooted in every little thing and celebrating every little teeny milestone because they're actually bigger than we realize.
Yeah.
So, and you know, we're also just trying to keep it simple
Yeah.
and reminding myself that it doesn't need to be hard
No.
because I was a perpetual like making things hard for myself human and I'm not anymore, which is a
Yeah.
big win.
Yeah, it is a big win because it's just what you know. It's just like what you get like back in that groove. It's like the groove that you created for yourself is very difficult to shift out of that track and onto another one, of course, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I would be very curious to know. I have two more questions for you. I'd be very curious to know if there is a product or like a prop or whatever it was, that was either part of, be before you guys merged, right? Like if it was part of Half Moon, that you had to, discontinue, that you still feel like you wish that you didn't have to do that, but it had to happen maybe.
Ooh, oh gosh.
I feel like everybody's got one.
Okay. I got to narrow my list because I have like 3 things in my head.
Okay.
Um, Saying goodbye to limited edition colors of B mats is like always really hard.
Yeah.
The moss green B mat is
Love
deeply
green.
loved.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So that's always hard because obviously we can't have 100 colors.
Hmm.
Uh, so parting ways with moss green was a big one. I actually just found 6 in our warehouse. And I'm like, what are we going to do with these? This is gold, B
Right?
mat
Yeah.
gold. And then also a lot of the half moon prints are similar, where like I just love them so much, but we can't have 100 prints. It's just
Yeah.
financially impossible.
Yeah.
So I guess those stand out, but we have a lot of products in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Say that like our core, like the limited edition prints on our bolsters and the B matte colors are the ones that I have the toughest time parting ways with.
Right, right. And so why can't the moss green one always exist? What's the reason?
Great question.
As a green
I
lover,
mean, this is always the challenge. We would have to drop another color.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Because
Fair.
just financially, warehouse size, there's minimum order quantities. Like financially, ultimately, we can't have more colors.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll keep my eyes open for the moss
Like
green one.
you drop ocean green for
Yeah.
moss green,
Right.
but
I think
people love
the
ocean
one,
green.
yeah, I think the one I have is ocean green. It's like this kind of green. It's the
Yeah.
dark. Yeah. Okay. So that's the one I have, which is beautiful, I will say. So,
Yeah, that's well loved. So it's like, how do we design?
yeah.
How do we decide?
Right. Well, maybe this will plant a little seed that the moss green one might have a little moment again, a tiny limited edition moment
I
again.
would love to give it another moment
Yeah, there we
for sure. I
go.
still have a little sample on my desk.
Yeah, just as a little reminder.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay. And I don't know if there's anything you feel like you really wanted to share that we missed at all. I have one final question for you, but I want to leave you the space to share whatever you feel. If you ha feel like there was something that you wanted to mention that you didn't, and it's okay if you don't. That's fine.
I've loved all of your questions. Um, no, I don't think that there's nothing jumping out at me.
Okay.
I'm just really grateful
Right.
for you and the community and to be able to share my story with others, because I hope it supports others in their journey. And it's also supportive of myself to just share this for myself to share the story. So I'm just grateful.
Right. Yeah, I think I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I think from, the connections I've made and people I've chatted with that you've made a great impact, and we all really appreciate the person that you are, Andrea. So we
Thank
are
you.
grateful that you're in this space. And even during that pause when, there was uncertainty from the outside perspective of what was going to happen. And I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do for bolsters? Because these ones are the best, like, by far. Like, it's like I don't know where I'm going to get a bolster from. I mean, fortunately enough, you guys gifted me with, I believe it was 15 of everything a couple years ago. I got like 15 blocks, or no, I got 30 blocks, 15 bolsters, whatever it was. So I feel like I was sitting on also gold. It was like the moss green moment for me. I was like, well, I have all of these bolsters, but still in the future when I needed more, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, so we love, we
Love that. I
love.
love we can give back to the community. I
Right.
remember that.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
the best that we get to do that.
Right. I still have them all. They sit at like my mom's house because I have no room for them here. So thanks, mom. But they all still exist. They're still there. Okay. My final question for you is, and I think we've touched on it a little bit here and there, but I'd be curious just to know, from you what your light in the darkness is, Andrea.
My light in the darkness. Oh my gosh. My light in the darkness is definitely my children who bring me light every day, even when I'm wanting to pull my hair out with them.
Yeah.
Um, because they're so still young and innocent and so everything they see the world with is with a vision of glass half full. And they inspire me to look at things that way too. And I just think I know there's a yin to every yang. So I know that in darkness, there's still light. And just kind of having a deeper trust in everything, you know?
Right. Right. Beautiful answer. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, this has been so nice. I'm very happy to sit down with you. Like we said at the beginning before we even pressed record, that it's been a few years in the making, and and we're just opening up to these virtual conversations. And you were my first first thought on the list. I was like, well, I can finally talk to Andrea now. So thank you for sitting down with me and for your time and energy.
I was so glad you reached out and because I don't know when I'm going to be back in Vancouver. So I'm glad we made it happen virtually.
Of course. Okay.
And I'll let you know when I am in
Yeah, please
Vancouver.
let me know. Yeah, for sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Whitney. It was my pleasure.
Thank
So
you.
nice chatting.